something new here. All right. Good evening, everyone, to you who wherever you may be watching, whether you are on Facebook or YouTube, is where we're going live today. Happy Thursday evening. We're one day closer to Friday. And I know that we have been missing in action for a minute, but we are back and I am excited. I have a wonderful guest with me today. And we're going to talk about character. Do you have character or are you being a character? And we're going to dive into that. Let's see. Christmas holidays are coming up. Welcome. Those of you, I see you coming in. Great, great, great. Please share this live and feel free to post your comments, questions in here so that we can see what you guys have to say. Hopefully you hear us really well. It sounds good on my end. Thomas, does it sound well for you?
Yes, it does.
Okay, great. Well, I've already mentioned his name. So welcome my friend who we actually met on Facebook. I really don't even know how, Thomas, that we started communicating on Facebook. But we did. I was a part of his show, which he's going to tell you a little bit about before. And I just have found him to be such a warm and welcoming person, just a sweetheart of a guy who loves the Lord. So usually, hey, you should be able to connect with anyone who loves the Lord, right? So Thomas O'Connor, welcome to the takeover. How are you this evening?
Thank you, Angela. I'm doing well, and I'm honored to be here. Thanks for inviting me.
Great. Now that we know a little bit about you, I want you to dive in a little bit more and just tell the people a little bit more about you, Thomas. Like,
how far
where
back
are you from?
Where am I from? Okay. I was born and raised in Philadelphia.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. So I'm an East Coast guy. And I've been living in Illinois now for almost 10 years. And before that, I lived in Delaware for 10 years.
Okay.
So this is actually my third state that I'm living in.
Awesome. All right. So we're going to be a little nosy just for a few minutes. Now tell the people, because you are a gentleman, are you married? Are you single? Because I don't want anyone approaching you if you're taken, I have a lot of single friends. So I want to make clear the air. Are you single? Are you married? I know the answer, but I want you to tell me.
Thank you for getting that out there. I am very happily married to the love of my life.
All right. How long have you been married?
We're going on 10 years.
Awesome.
It'll be 10 years in July, Lord willing. Her name is Crystal Lynn Elliott O'Connor. She is the love of my life and my soulmate. So
okay, Crystal.
I am taken.
Okay, listen, he put some other names in there. So Crystal, if you are watching, listen, I want to make sure that we give you your respect and let everybody know, hey, don't be sending me inbox messages. Do not be inboxing Thomas asking for his number or anything like that, right?
That's unavailable.
Right, he is unavailable. Now, Thomas, I mentioned that you used to have your own show, that you had your own show that I was a part of. Tell us about that. What was that about, and what made you even go that route?
Sure. The program was called, and it's available on my YouTube channel, free plug, right? It was called Life Talk, and it began earlier in this year. The Holy Spirit really laid on my heart that there should be a platform specifically for Black women.
Okay.
To come out and tell their story, to have a platform where they could freely speak about whatever they wanted to. And so we did about 35, 36 episodes. Of course, Angela, you were one of the guests on that, yes. Where I just simply sat back as the host and just let my guests talk, whatever the Holy Spirit prompted them to say. Sometimes it was projects, sometimes it was gospel messages, sometimes it was struggles in their life. And except in 2 cases, every one of my guests was a woman of color. Yes. And so I'm very proud of that. I take no credit for it because it was an idea from God. It is on hiatus right now, but Lord willing, I hope that it will come back in some form again, because I think it blessed a lot of people.
It did. I enjoyed being on your show, and I like that. So I hope it comes out of hiatus really, really soon.
You'll have to come back.
We have a lot of things going on, as we mentioned prior to going live. So I understand juggling, different things in your life or what have you, trying to just get a lot of things done and accomplished. So I see all these awards or certificates on your wall. Oh, yeah. Tell us about that. So are you a counselor? What is your background?
Currently, I'm a pastor. My wife and I co-pastor the First Baptist Church of Plano, Illinois. Hello to our home church if you happen to
All
be
right.
watching.
Okay.
I've been pastoring churches on and off for many years now, and some of these behind me. I have a BA in biblical studies. I'm a licensed Christian counselor. I'm also a certified temperament counselor. That's what some of these behind me are. And I just have this just happens to be the angle of the camera. It's not
That
like I'm
temperament is going to be good for what we're discussing.
I'm not
Today.
showing off here. They just happen to be behind me right now.
I know.
But if you were to ask me, Angela, what is it that God has called me to do? I consider myself a Bible teacher.
Okay.
And a preacher. I am a pastor also, but my real calling is teaching and preaching the Bible.
Okay, and we need that. We need that. I find that it seems like we're in an era where people are really seeking the truth about the Bible and their beliefs, because we have what I call an instilled theology. Sometimes we were taught what by our parents, this is what they believed. And so it's an ingrained theology. So that's what has been put in us. And so we tend to believe that. But now it seems like people are searching for, is that how I really believe? Do I really believe the way that my parents and my forefathers believed? Do I really believe what I was taught? What is the truth? Was everything that I taught, was that truthful? Not saying that anyone taught us anything purposely wrong, but sometimes if we don't have a great knowledge and understanding of the word ourselves, we're just going off of what we were taught, what was passed down to us, and we believe that without really searching. So I feel like we're in an era now where I see more and more people really searching for the truth. Like, what do I believe? How do I validate what I truly believe? So I think it's great that you are a Bible teacher, because we are supposed to, even as individuals, study the word and know it, so we can show ourselves approved, so we can rightly divide the word of truth. So that's great. Now, moving forward, you mentioned something earlier, and it's going to kind of make a segue into our topic, character versus being a character. Do you have character? So for those of you who are listening or who will be listening later, character is so important in our everyday life, whether it's in your friendships, your family relationships, business relationship, romantic marriages. Character is so important. So I know that, so I'm single and I'm dating. However, it says sometimes that we allow our representative to show up. So the topic, the title that I use, character versus being a character, and a lot of you know that I'm a playwright and I'm an author as well, a published author. So you develop these characters, and you make the character be who it is you want them to be, and you create their personality and things of that nature. But that's not a real person. It's fiction. And sometimes I feel like in our everyday life that we are a character more so than we are who we truly are, the essence and the core of who we are. So we want to talk about that tonight, about character, having character. How do I develop my character? What is character actually? Character versus personality. What does the Bible say about character? We could go on, and we're probably not going to have enough time to cover everything. But Thomas, from your standpoint, give me your definition of character.
The first word that comes to my mind when I think of character is integrity.
Okay.
What do we live by? What are our morals, our principles, the things that we value in life? Are we the same person with people and when we're by ourselves? That's our true character. That's who we truly are.
Yes.
If you're acting one way in public, you're being a character.
Come on now. Yes.
You're being someone that you're not. We need to be honest with ourselves to say, who am I? What do I believe?
Yes.
What do I stand for? Where will I draw the line on things? And that all plays into who our character is.
This is so true. I like your definition that that's integrity definitely is a characteristic of having good character. Because again, as I mentioned, sometimes we walk around and we are living or portraying who we think people want us to be sometimes, you know, and truly we should just be our authentic self, you know, just be who we truly are. And I think your character can be developed, of course. When I think of character, you kind of touched on the dictionary definition of it as well. Is it's the core of who you are. It is based on our morals and our values and the beliefs, and then how we truly act. You know, it's our persona, personality on the other side, because sometimes people confuse personality and character, and they're similar, but they're different. They're not the same. Our personality is how people perceive us to be. That's like, oh, they're funny or they're very outgoing, you know. You know, but my character is my integrity. Am I honest? Am I compassionate? Am I loving? Am I patient? Those are things that when you think about it that you can't change. But my personality, I can, because I can be very outgoing today and very laid back tomorrow as personality. I can be very funny today and just very solemn the next hour, you know. Personality changes. I can change my personality, but my character, usually that's not going to change. That's the essence of who I am. Although our personality, I'm going to say, well, our character kind of influences our personality. I'll say it that way. Do you agree?
I do. I want to put another word in there also that I mentioned earlier, and that is temperament.
Yes.
And temperament is not temper. You know, I fly off the handle. I have temper. Our temperament is closer to our character than our personality. Temperament is something that God infuses in all of us as we are born. And so I'll give you an example. I'll describe myself. My temperament, it may not look it sometimes, but my temperament, I am a melancholy.
Okay. Yes.
And a melancholy. Okay. I am a loner. I am quiet. I am insular. I take everything into heart. A lot of things get played around in here. A lot of emotion goes through my body.
Yes.
And through my mind and through my spirit, because I am a melancholy. God has worked with me, and I'm still trying to figure out the melancholy temperament for myself, because he put me in a pulpit to preach the word of God. And I get fired up and I get loud when I preach the word of God. But melancholies are the people that we're not the center of attention. We don't want to be in the middle of the room. We're not there telling jokes. That's another kind of temperament. Whereas Crystal, she is a choleric. If she sees a problem, she jumps right in and says, I know how to fix it. Get out of the way. That's a choleric. And these are temperaments that God infuses in us. So those things don't change.
Right.
Personality quirks along the way. You develop a sense of humor. You become maybe a little more sensitive as we get older. Those things change, but temperament doesn't. So
you mentioned two of the temperaments. I read a book. Oh gosh, I can't remember who the author is, and I'm sure you've read it. But it's like I think the title was "Who Are You?" and it talked about the temperaments. So can you quickly go over a couple of more? Is it 4 or 5 different temperaments?
There's actually 5, but the 5th one is a little muddy. Another one is a phlegmatic.
Okay.
And a phlegmatic is sort of like. Well, let me do this. A sanguine is another one of the temperaments.
Yeah.
All right.
That's who I am. I think that's who I am.
You know what? You just might be. Knowing what I know about you, a sanguine has all of this energy, and certainly you have that also. A sanguine sometimes doesn't know when to stop. So a sanguine will keep grinding and grinding and grinding, and then you kind of wake up one morning and you're absolutely exhausted. And you don't know why, because you didn't stop. That's what a sanguine is.
Yes.
A phlegmatic has more of an awareness where they realize, okay, my temperament is a melancholy and I have some phlegmatic in me. And that means that I recognize when I get tired, I need to slow down. I recognize my body starts telling me, my mind starts telling me, you need to relax. You need to be calm. You need to put that book away or stop writing that sermon or whatever.
Right.
Sanguines don't know that inherently.
I'm a sanguine. I remember.
Okay, there you go.
Yes, I am that person. Yes, I do not know how to stop. My mind is always going and going and going and going, and my body nearly almost sometimes have to just shut down for me to slow down.
You sound like a classic sanguine. So those temperaments are what God, and one of the great discoveries of my life was actually learning this
Yes.
and discovering who it is that I am, because it has actually helped me when I react to things. I'm also known as an HSP. I don't know if you ever heard about that.
No.
It's
Talk
known
about
as a highly sensitive person.
Mm.
And that is someone where you're just sensitive to everything. And I'll give you an example. It's not a great
I like
example,
that.
but I'll give you an
Write that
example.
down.
You ever ride down the road and you see a poor animal that was killed?
Oh,
Okay.
yeah.
A squirrel, maybe a raccoon. And currently we're living in a rural area. So we see that, unfortunately, more than I would like to. For an HSP or a highly sensitive person, that image stays with me much longer than just passing the dead raccoon and say, well, isn't that terrible? And you just keep driving. That stays with me. And I have to process all of that feeling that here's one of God's creations who just happened to be crossing the road and he or she was killed. And how terrible is that? And it affects me more so than maybe another person says, it's just a raccoon. Who cares? That's the difference. And so for me, Angela, I'm dealing with the fact that I'm melancholy, I'm a phlegmatic, and I'm an HSP.
Wow.
So, yeah.
So how does that all play into your personality? Are you more, I think you said this, so you're more introverted?
I am.
Okay.
It doesn't come off that way sometimes, but I really am. I prefer quiet to crowds.
Okay.
So,
okay.
If we have to, I'm up before my congregation every Sunday preaching, or we're traveling to go somewhere. I recognize, and how that plays into my daily life, I recognize if we're in a crowd, that after a while, I start feeling that I'm being encroached upon and I need to go get that fresh air. And so I'll back out. There are sometimes some events where it's too overwhelming for me. I get overstimulated from crosstalk, conversation. And so I have to back away from that.
I have heard of people like that. I know some people who are like that, who don't like crowds. They prefer more small, intimate settings than the large stadiums. You know, they don't go to the games and stuff. Me, on the other hand, I guess I'm in between. You have to tell me which one I am, because I have moments where I like the crowds. I'm a people person, so I love people. I will talk to the wall if it talks back to me. So I love that. I'm very talkative and very sociable. So I love to be around people. But then on the other hand, it seems like they're flip. And I'm just like, I don't want to be bothered. I just want to be by myself. I don't know if that's a personality disorder or
it's not. Stop that. No, that is actually consistent with the sanguine, because sanguines tend to swing back and forth. Like you go for broke.
Yes.
And there's other times like not today.
Yes, that's me. Yeah. So I can have those. I have those moments, and where I'm just like, if someone call and say, "Hey, so I took to go," I'm like, "No, I'm okay." When the pandemic first hit, I was okay with being at home.
Sure.
You know, it was my son and I at the time, so I was okay with being at home and being stuck in the house away from. It kind of gave me a breather and a break, because I was always around people, even with working. Going into the different doctors' offices and the hospital settings. So I'm always around people, and someone's always pulling on you. So in the beginning, I welcomed it, solitude, and I can be alone by myself. But then after a moment, I'm just like, okay, I got to get out of this house. I've got to change scenery. I need to be around some people, So, so sanguine is my temperament. Now, talk about the temperament and the character. I know they're closely related, but how does temperament play into a person's character, or is it vice versa? Is one more important than the other?
That's a great question. Temperament doesn't change. Our character and our personalities can change based on our temperament. If you don't know what your temperament is, you're missing a huge part of your understanding as to who you are. You can have a series of values and morals and say, I want to live a certain way. I'm a Christian. I live by biblical standards. You can say all those things, and that plays into your personality. But is that how God made you? Because it's a deeper thing. What do you do with how God made you?
Right.
You've identified yourself as a sanguine. So you have all this energy and you have these projects that are going on, but maybe you have that down day because you're swinging back.
Yes.
How does your personality as Angela and your work ethic, how does that fit into how God shaped you already at birth? That's the key. That's the key. And so I've learned for myself, and I'm still learning about myself, being a melancholy. Lord, why did you make me a preacher when I prefer quiet? Why am I in the pulpit? Why am I preaching? Why am I even on social media when ideally for me as a melancholy and HSP is to have a nice, quiet, sedate, orderly life?
It's funny that I know I'm a PK's kid, so my dad was like that. Was a pastor, and we started preaching first, and then later went into pastoring. But at home, he was very laid back man, a few words. No, of course, now if you talk about the Bible, he would talk with you all day long. But anything really outside of that, he didn't talk a whole lot. So, and then I know other people who are like that, who God has called into ministry and they're behind the pulpit, but it's like as soon as I am through, and they're very energetic, charismatic in the pulpit and they're preaching. But after that, you'd be like, do they talk at all?
Yes, right, exactly.
Yeah, what's wrong? Are you okay? So yeah, but that's interesting that even my character or my temperament is one way, but it goes to show that the Spirit of God can change you and he empowers you to do what he's called you to do, so you can't even use that as an excuse like, hey, I'm shy, or I'm just, I don't have anything to say. I don't know what to say. No, because God will equip you. God equips you to do what he calls you to do.
You look at a biblical example. Think of Moses. God calls Moses.
I was thinking of him. Yes.
First thing Moses is doing is making excuses. I can't talk. You don't want me. Go get somebody else.
Yes.
And yet God empowered him and sent Aaron with him to say, I've got you covered. You're the guy. You're the guy. I want you to go and do this. Stop making excuses. And
yes,
God works with our temperaments because he made us. So
That's
he
right.
knows what Thomas can do. He knows what Angela can do, and he knows what we can't do.
Yes.
And he's going to enhance him.
Now, two things come to mind before I change directions just slightly. If a person does not understand their temperament, don't know what temperament they are, can you give them some references or some tools that they can utilize to define their temperament? Maybe it's a book that they can read, or is there a quiz or a test? I think I took a test that was in the book. I wish I should have looked that book up before I started this. But yeah, can you share what is the best way for a person to determine their temperament if they don't know?
Well, at the risk of sounding like a shameless self-promotion, one of the things I do, because I'm a certified temperament counselor, I can help you with that. Contact me.
Okay. And we will make sure we get your share your information near the end of the broadcast.
There is a test. There is a test you can take that determines exactly what your temperament is. What's interesting is and because it's all confidential, obviously.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
But of all the tests that I've done over the years, most people, when they first see the results, there's two reactions. Number one, that's not me. So the test is completely wrong. Mm-hmm. They're absolutely in shock when I actually explain and break down what their temperament is, because they say, but that's not how I behave. That's not how I act. That's not how I think. And I'm saying, but that's because it's world influence. It's family influences. It's your day-to-day thing. This is not how God made you. Once I explain to them how God really made you, trust me, it opens up a whole new world. It may be a little strange at first when you say, God really made me a melancholy? And then the little bell starts going off and you realize, now I know why crowds bother me. Now I know why I'm not in the center of the room telling the jokes.
Right.
I need to have quiet. Right. Now it makes sense to me, Lord. Now I get it. That's the revelation that comes with these tests.
And I think it is so important because I meet and I talk to a lot of people who don't know who they are. They don't know what their purpose is. And I'm talking not someone that's in their 20s or 30s, these are people in their 40s and 50s and older. It's like, I'm still trying to define my purpose and I really don't know who I am. And if you ask someone to describe themselves, they're quick to say what they do. Like, I'm a mother, I'm a teacher.
Right.
Those are things that you do, but who
Right.
are you?
Who are
They struggle with that. They're not able to define who they are because they really don't know who they are. So I think it's important to take these tests and these quiz and define who you are, and not look to an astrologer,
Oh, no,
into the zodiacs and stuff like that
No.
sometimes. So they're trying to define who they are based on the zodiac. But there are legitimate quizzes that really talk about, and psychology tests that talk about the core of who you are and help you understand who you are. So
Absolutely.
I think that's important. And we want to, is there a book also that comes to mind? Because some people like to read, like I do, that gives great detail about it. And you guys, once I find the book, I'm sure I have it somewhere in my library, the book that I read. Oh, and I wish I loved that book. Both her and her husband write, but I want to see the title is Who Am I?
Excuse me for getting out of here. I have one book here that has helped, and it's right here. And it's called The Temperament God Gave Me. And it's by Art and Lorraine Bennett. I'm just going to kind of hold that up in the camera there.
Okay, yes.
There's one book that can be helpful, and it explains the various temperaments. And the information that I do in the test is also extremely helpful. Now, here's the thing. When you want to really find out what your temperament is, you have to go in with an open mind.
Yes.
And you have to realize that the first thing you're going to do, because I've seen it in every single case, including me, is you're going to reject the results. But you have to be open to it because, I'm a mother. I work 2 jobs. I prefer this type of person. I like this type of ice cream.
Yes.
That's not your temperament. That is not even
right.
your character. They're characteristics, but we can look, you can look in scripture. When you read the book of Job, the very first verse in Job tells you what he was. He was upright. He turned away from evil.
Right.
He had all of these characteristics, but even that verse doesn't say what his temperament was.
Right.
We don't know what Job's temperament
We
is.
don't know.
No.
We don't know. It's important. Now, you mentioned, so you're building my next segue here.
Okay.
I want to talk about, well, let's go here first. How important is a person's character and temperament when it comes down to relationships? I have an answer, but I want to hear and just kind of talk about that for a moment.
I think it's extremely important. If you don't, you need to share to me when you're in a relationship or even you're meeting someone for the first time, they should know right up front who you are and what you stand for.
Yes.
And I'm not saying be overwhelming and just bombard them with every single theory you have in life and everything, but they should know what you stand for and where your boundaries are especially as you're getting into a relationship. I know that character, there's a list of characters that we can just call off. But what do you define, or how do you define a person that has good character, and what do you base that off of? If I'm meeting someone, you mean?
Yes, any person. So it could be someone you've met on the street, someone you work with. What for you defines good character, and what do you base that off of?
Okay. One of the top ones is honesty. I can respect you if you tell me something honestly, even if we disagree. As long as you're honest with me, we can respectfully disagree.
Yes.
If you play around, you play games, if you are being a character, if you're trying to be someone you're not,
right,
then I'll see right through that right away. And then your integrity is gone. Your respectability is gone, because now when you do tell me something is true, how do I trust you now?
Right.
Once that trust is gone and you can't recognize who they are, I'd rather somebody say to me, Thomas, I've gotten to talk to you a little bit and I don't like you. I'm okay with that if you tell me you don't like me. But if you tell me you like me or you're attracted to me and you string me along and then kind of drop me for some reason, we're just playing games. Don't dance.
That's right. That's right.
Don't
Why
you?
do you feel people that they feel the need to do that? Like some people struggle, I guess, with just being honest. Is that we know that's a character flaw, but why do you feel that we sometimes feel like we have to play games with people? And you mentioned something earlier about people who are not sometimes receptive of when they find out what their temperament is,
Mhm.
because we've been shaped and we've lived and portrayed to be one thing for so long that it becomes real to us. That, it may start out, hey, this is just temporary. And then the more you do it, it becomes consistent. As I said, you create this habit, so
Mhm.
now I've conformed to being someone that I'm truly not. And now I'm conflicted because I can't even identify who my real self is anymore. And then when it's revealed to me, I'm in denial because like you really realize that you've gotten so far away from who you truly are. And sometimes that's hard to accept. And then even the word, we know that the word, when we read it, if you ask God to, it will reveal yourself to you. And sometimes the ugly truths about us, we don't want to accept anyway. Be like, oh God, is that me? Or I'm so far away from what you really said I'm supposed to be. I haven't been operating in faith, or I've just been ugly, in some ways, I haven't been as gracious and kind as you've called me to be. So sometimes we realize that and we're like, oh no, that's not me. But deep down, we really know that is us, but, what's revealed can be healed, So once I know something about myself, then I can be healed or delivered or strengthened from that place.
Yeah, sometimes, and I was just listening to you, trying to unravel everything you just said as you were explaining. You were explaining the very core of conflict. You were,
Yes.
I want to be this, but I'm that. I don't know the definite answer to your question, but sometimes it's you don't want to see the real person. You want to make a false impression. You have one chance to make an impression on someone the first time you meet them, and they will know if you're genuine or not. Sometimes it comes from hurt, and you don't want to reveal yourself. For me, it's amazing to me since I've gotten on social media years ago how much I've actually revealed about myself, because I am a very private person. Just being here with you tonight and revealing some of these things is that step that God has brought me to, where I can actually share some things that have happened in my life. I've
Right.
been hurt by people. We all have.
Yes.
And because of that, you kind of put a mask on.
Yes.
And what you don't do is you don't open that door wide and say, here I am in all of my ugliness. So I'm going to put on a bit of a mask. I'm going to be a bit of a character. And maybe you'll like me a little bit more, because if you knew the real Thomas, you wouldn't like me.
Woo! You said that. Now that's the truth. That's the whole heart of the matter, is that we want people to like us. Even I don't care how many times it's like, I don't care what people think about me. I don't care if they like me or not. We really do. We want people to like us. And we want to be perceived as a good person. No one wakes up and says, I'm going to be ugly. And I just want everybody to know that I'm an ugly person.
Right.
We want to be liked. We want to be loved. But as you said, based on maybe some things that we've done, or we've thought that, our past is not as clean as maybe we're comparing ourselves to the next person, to our neighbor. So if you knew these things about me, then you wouldn't accept me. You would reject me. And no one wants to be rejected. So let me alter who I am just a little bit, or let me not reveal all of who I am, so that I can stay in your good graces. And I get it. I understand why, because it has been shown that people will reject you sometimes based on what they know about you. I see it. We see it every day. And that one, I don't care how many great things that you have done, you mess up one time in people's eyes and they will never let you live it down. And even after that, you can cover yourself with hey, I have a failure and I'm back on track and I'm doing all these great things. And you mentioned, hey, do you know Thomas? Yeah. But isn't he the guy who used to do such and such?
Yeah,
You know,
exactly. Yeah. Some things do
hey, do
follow
you know
you.
Angela? Yeah. Well, I heard that she got, and did she have a baby out of wedlock once? You know,
Oh
so
my.
they're going to you just keep bringing up, and it could be 10, 20 years ago. They remember that. So
Mhm.
yeah, because I don't want to be rejected. I don't want you to bring up my past or my pain, my hurt, my traumas. So I'm not going to share that with you. Um, it
Another
hinders us. It
another
hinders us.
possibility too, Angela, is that if I make a good first impression with you or
Yes.
anyone that I'm meeting and we start getting along, it's a little easier to reveal some of the ugly stuff later on. You
Yes.
take the chance that that person's going to say, "Oh, you've been deceiving me all along. I'm done with you." But you might
Mhm.
just find that person says, "You know what? I can understand why you didn't reveal all that right away."
Yes.
But we take that chance, and
And
that's
I think actually that's probably the best way. So you don't want to dump everything on a person because they probably can't handle it. Whoa, it's too much.
yeah.
But as you're building your relationship with the person and you're building intimacy. And when I speak of intimacy, I'm talking about where I feel comfortable enough with revealing my inner self to you. Is nothing sexual or anything that I'm
Mhm.
referencing when I say intimacy. We have this closeness, we have this connection, and I feel comfortable. And because I have, in past experiences, I have opened myself up to people who I felt like had my best interests at heart, who I loved, and I felt like they cared about me. And then I revealed some things and they took it and used it against me. So, you know
Mm.
what? I pull back. And now, because I don't want to experience that hurt and pain anymore, the next person who comes into my life, whether it's a friend or someone who
Mhm.
is, trying to date me or whatever, nope, I'm not going to reveal all of myself because past experiences. And it's hard to wipe the slate clean and then start all over with the next person. But regardless of who that person may be, whether it's a business partner or it's someone that you're in relationship with, even family members sometimes, and sometimes they can hurt you the worst, because
Tell
they
me
know
about it.
so
Yeah.
much about you. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's just like, oh, okay, I'll be distant from everybody. But yeah, we're talking about character versus being a character. You guys who are just coming in, thank you. Please share this live. Thomas, I want you to show the book again that you mentioned about temperament and where they can find that. Thomas also is a temperament coach. So the book is entitled The Temperament God Gave You.
Yes.
And the author, can you tell I can't see the author as well?
Yes. It's written by husband and wife, Art and Lorraine Bennett.
Okay, I'm gonna put that in the comments. Art and
Lorraine
Lorraine.
Bennett. It's just one of the books that is out there about that. Um,
Temperament God.
yeah, this is a great topic, Angela. And you know what? It's always better to be a character than being a character. It's better to be genuine than being
Yes.
something made up. Because in the end, we need to, we talk about just be yourself. Well, if
Yes.
yourself is a loudmouth and you like to be the life of the party, I'd rather see that in you. And then I can make the decision whether I want to be around you, with you, develop a friendship relationship with
This
you,
is true.
or
This is
you're
true.
too much
True.
for me.
So true.
The other thing we were talking earlier about, sometimes we don't want to see really the ugliness that's inside. And so we throw
Right.
up a mask,
Yes.
when Jesus talks about all these things that come out of the heart, and we say, "But wait a minute, I'm a good person. I don't have all of these. I'm not a murderer, and I'm not an adulterer, and I'm." Read that list sometime. You're
Right.
going to find yourself in there, and you have no excuse. And so
That's right.
sometimes
That's
we're like, okay, I hear it justified all the time. I'm not a murderer. Therefore, I have a good heart. Therefore, I'm a nice person. Therefore, you
Right.
should date
Right.
me or you should
Right.
like me.
Right. Right.
God, man looks at the appearance. God looks at the heart.
That's true. That
God
is
looks deep
true.
inside.
That's true.
And part of understanding our temperament and who we are as people is discovering and really being honest, saying, God, this is the way you see me. But there's a way out of that. There's a way to correct that.
Yes. Yes. Now you're talking about something that You just made me think of something, is that when you're dealing with your temperament and your character, sometimes we judge people rather based off of their action. It's like, well, they did this, and they may be guilty of whatever it is that you say that they did.
Mm-hmm.
But the question is why, and they're responding based on their temperament or their character. So whatever happened, whatever the situation is, this based on who I am, I truly am, this is how I responded, this is why I responded. But if I don't know that, it's just easy for me to judge you and say you're a bad person. And it may not be that I'm a bad person. It just may be that I have responded based on my temperament and character, and I need to learn how to adjust or respond in a better way, be taught how to respond in a better way. I'm influenced by, outside sources, my upbringing or social life, things of that nature. So I think that we should seek also to understand people, their backgrounds, where they come from, why they act the way that they act, why they respond the way that they respond, because it's easy to just write someone off based off of action or two, but we don't understand the why, and we need to seek to understand that sometimes, the why.
That is a great point, and that's one of the things I've struggled with in my adult life, because, hey, look at that person over there,
Yes.
Look what they did.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, when we follow Christ in the Bible, every time he encountered someone, did he judge them right away? Did he condemn them right away? No, he got to know them first.
Yes.
He had a dialogue with them.
Mm-hmm.
When you think of the woman caught in adultery, and these guys are bringing this woman to him. Look at this woman. Look what she did. Right?
Mm-hmm.
What did Jesus say? That's if any of you, he who without sin, you throw that first stone. What did they do? One by one, they backed away.
That's it.
And suddenly it was just Jesus and the woman left, and he's like, I'm not going to condemn you. Just go and
accuse us. Yeah.
Make a change in your life.
That's it.
Learn from it. Make a change. If Jesus came in judging all of us, the Gospels would look a whole lot different than what we see. He wouldn't be the compassionate, forgiving God that he is.
That's true. That's true. Which leads me quickly, I want to touch on the character of God. How can I put this? Being that I mentioned earlier about like what would be an example of a person that has good character on a biblical level or a spiritual level, we have to look at the character of God. If we are saying that we are Christians and we are following the way of Christ for those who are believers. If you are not a believer, anyone listening, if you're not a believer, that's okay. There's no judgment over here. But those of us who are, we have to look at the character of God. And I want you to touch on briefly your understanding from a biblical standpoint, some of the characteristics of God and how we can follow, how he's an example, and how we can try to line ourselves up.
There are so many attributes that God has. I mean, and here's the one that it's at the top of the list now. I was talking to Crystal about this, and I've talked to others about it recently. Long suffering.
Woo!
Okay. We can end the conversation right there. Long suffering. All right. God is patient. God is compassionate. God is forgiving. God is understanding. Yes. God realizes that he made Thomas very different than he made Angela, yet he loves us both.
Come on. Yes.
God loved us enough to send, for those who are believers, who sent Jesus here to die on our behalf.
Yes.
To pay for our sins. Now, if that is not a loving, forgiving, compassionate God, then there isn't one.
That's true.
And the fact that he's long suffering, when you see what is going on in this world day to day, it amazes me that God is where he is, looking down, and he loves us so much that even after the flood in Noah's day, he made a promise. He said, I'll never do this again. I'm never going to wipe out humanity again. Yes. That's a loving God. So if we were to take the attributes of God, just those 4 or 5, how are we doing with that? Are we forgiving? Mm-hmm. Are we compassionate? Are we long-suffering? Are we willing to sacrifice for others? Are we willing to give of ourselves for the betterment of someone else?
And are we loving?
Are we loving?
That
So
is huge.
start checking off those
Yes.
lists, and you realize how we fall short very often.
Yes, we do. And you can't, God is not a respecter of person, so you can't pick and choose who you're going to be loving and long suffering with and kind to. God loved us all. He's been patient and loyal to us all when we don't deserve it. I know I don't deserve it,
Nor do I.
None of it. I don't deserve it. But he still loves us and he doesn't pick and choose. And sometimes we find ourselves based on the fact that, hey, I like this person, so I'm going to grant them more forgiveness, or I'm going to be more kind and gracious towards them. And we're not supposed to do that. We're supposed to love everyone, and we're supposed to show the same kind of love towards everyone and be gracious and kind and forgiving. Sometimes we hold stuff in against someone, because I just don't want to forgive. At one time in my life, I struggled with forgiveness, because I felt like if I forgive, first of all, they didn't deserve my forgiveness. And then if I didn't forgive, that it was hurting them. But really, it wasn't hurting them at all, because they wasn't caring that I didn't forgive them. It was hurting me. So once I learned that, hey, let me forgive, and I'm freeing myself of this pain, and I can continue to heal and be healed from it, and let God deal with them. So
think of it this way:
characters.
Does God carry grudges?
No,
we do.
Yep.
Is God never not unforgiving towards us?
Never.
Or can we go to him and please forgive me for this, and we receive that forgiveness?
Yes.
We look at God. I've often said, and I've preached for years, Jesus Christ is our role model. If we just follow what he did, what he said, what he thought, how he treated people, how he went through his earthly ministry. And that has nothing to do with the fact that he was called into ministry and he was ministering to people. If we just look at his characteristics, how he treated people, and then compare it against ourselves, are we coming up short?
Mm-hmm. Yes. Definitely. Yes. Yes. So how do we, when we find that we are coming up short, how do we strengthen ourselves? How do we make it better? How do we get there? How do we strive? What's the best way to get there, to develop our character so that we can be more Christ-like, or just be a better person as a whole for those who may not be believers like us? But just how can we better ourselves as far as our character?
Yeah, for me personally, it's just confessing it and learning to recognize it. If you're holding anger against someone, make it as a personal test. I'm angry with that person. Start thinking about, why am I angry? Like you said, if a person does something wrong to you, they went off and they're living their life. We're the ones holding on to the anger. So do you want to hold on to the anger so that one day you're going to your doctor and you have an ulcer, or you've developed cancer because you have all this anger in you? Do you really want to live that way?
That's true. People don't believe that, but it is true. That is true.
Do you want to live that way? Do you want to wind up on medication for bad nerves because you can't get rid of this anxiety because you're so angry at this family member? Or are you just going to let it go? And I'm talking to believers or not believers. Do you want to carry around this ball and chain on your leg, or do you want to let it go?
I want to let it go.
But you do it in small steps. You can't just wake up tomorrow and say, oh, I've discovered I have 16 bad habits and I'm going to get rid of all of them today. One at a time. How about that?
One at a time. And you have to pray about it. From my own personal experience, had some situations in my life where I had to, it was a process to forgive, so sometimes we say forgive and we know that we should, but there's no set time limit on forgiveness. You have to pray about it and say, God, at the point of my situation, I was like, God, I don't even know how to forgive because I'm so full of hurt and anger. I don't know how. I know that I should and I want to, but I don't know how. So you got to help me. And I continued to pray that prayer for a while and don't even know when the forgiveness happened. But I remember one time this particular person that had caused this offense or created this offense against me. And I had been praying and asking God to help me to forgive. And one day in my prayer time, I called their name out in prayer, and that stunned me. Like, what? this person, you're praying for them.
Yeah,
That's
right.
when I knew God had helped me to forgive, because I was able to pray for them and sincerely pray for them, and I meant it. So, it's a process. God helps you to forgive if you want to forgive, and how to let go. And if you don't know how, you just and ask him, say, hey, I don't know how, but I want to. Show me, help me, to let this thing go. And he will.
And excuse me, how did you feel after you let that go? What was the difference in you?
I felt like a weight really had been lifted off of me. Truthfully,
Exactly.
I really felt like a weight had been lifted off of me, because I forgave. I was able to forgive without this person even asking for an apology, giving me an apology, or asking for my forgiveness. Mm-hmm. That's how powerful forgiveness is. And I was at a point, and when this weight was lifted, it didn't even matter to me. When I saw this person, I didn't immediately think about the hurt that they had caused, because I couldn't even talk about it, because I was so bogged down at front point. I couldn't talk about it because I was just busting into tears. I was still so hurt and angry. Yeah. You mentioned their name. I'm like, I don't know. I don't want to hear anything you got to say. I don't mention their name. Yeah. Just all this animosity, and I was carrying all this weight around within me. But after that, after God allowed me to forgive, there was this weight and this peace that took over me. So I was able to see them, greet them in love, be cordial, and not immediately think about the pain that they had caused, because I had been delivered from that and healed from the pain, and was able to forgive. So forgiveness is very powerful. It is very powerful.
And you answered your own question. How do you do it? You did it with one person, one at a time, and that weight was lifted. And you just keep doing that over and over until all of these things that are burdening you are gone. Turn them over. Don't carry them around.
Yeah. And it's forgiving someone, because I was thinking this too. I'm going to say this right quickly. Being able to forgive someone does not mean that they don't need to, that they won't receive, what's the word I want to say, the consequences that they deserve for whatever it is for the offense. That's not what forgiveness is. It's not saying, okay, I'll forgive you, so you don't deserve to do time, if that's what it was, or you don't deserve to reap whatever it is that you sow, because the Bible talks about that you should reap what you sow. Right. So that does not mean that they shouldn't suffer any consequences because you forgive. Again, forgiveness is for you. You're freeing yourself, because the Bible requires us. So how is it that I'm going to pray to God on a regular basis, daily basis, and ask God to forgive me for my sins and faults, but yet I am holding on to the faults and sins of someone else? Like, what was it, the king that was in the Bible? He went and asked for forgiveness because he owed a debt, and the king forgave him. But then when it came to his servant, he threw him in prison, didn't want to forgive him. You can't do that. That's not right. We can't do that. So it's unfair to ask God to give you something when you won't give it in return. All right. So lastly, Patrick, I want you to just sum up tonight in your own words, like, what do you want the people to take away from what we've discussed about character? And then also in that, let the people know how they can contact you through social media, or if they want to reach out to you in regards to being a temperament coach.
Okay. Well, first of all, thank you for having me as a guest. This has been
welcome.
It's been a wonderful experience, and I pray that those who've been tuning in have been blessed by it and have learned something from it.
Yes.
Here's what I would say. Don't be so hard on yourself that you beat yourself up and you become so paralyzed that you can't develop into the person that God has called you to be. God has made each one of us unique. The same way a snowflake is unique, each human being is unique. We are each born with a specific temperament, and we need to find out what that temperament is so that we know how to use that in the life that God has given us.
Yes.
If there are things in your life like unforgiveness and bitterness and hatred, take it from me, please. Don't carry that stuff around.
That's right.
What you don't want to do is get to the end of your life realizing, I hated that person for 30 years. That person went off and lived their life.
They sure did.
Let go of those hurts, because ultimately the hurt is turned inside and it's going to hurt you.
Yes.
Be genuine. You're going to be genuine who God made you to be. Don't be a cartoon character. They're fun to look at, cartoons. All right. They're fun. Charlie Brown is a cartoon.
Yes.
But the creator who created Charlie Brown was a real man and a born again Christian also, who injected his own character into these cartoon characters. There's a difference. Angela is a writer. She's a real woman, but she creates characters. There's a huge difference. Don't be a cartoon character. Be real.
That's it. Tell us right quickly how we can reach out to you for those who want to join you on social media, or if we want to use you as a temperament coach.
Okay. Thank you for the opportunity. You can reach me on email. Easiest way is Thomas Patrick. It's capital T, capital P, Thomas Patrick, all one word, at counselor.com. Now, the tricky part is counselor is spelled COUNSELLOR. If you don't get the 2 L's, I don't get the email. It's Thomas Patrick at counselor.com. You can reach me on social media. I'm on Facebook. I'm on Instagram, LinkedIn, Twitter, and I have my own YouTube channel also. You can reach out on any of those platforms. Be glad to dialogue with you, get to know you. And again, Angela, thank you, my friend, for this. This has been wonderful.
You are so welcome. You guys, it's been great. We're coming to the end, the close of the takeover. You guys, if you don't know how to reach me, you can find me at Angela E. Stevenson on Facebook, as well as the takeover_edu on Facebook. That's our podcast page, as well as on Instagram, the takeover_edu. I hope that you have enjoyed this, that you've learned something about character. I certainly have. It has encouraged me to even continue to build more character and become more long-suffering. And I need to revisit my temperament again, so I can stay on top of that as well. But thank you so much. Share this page, this video with someone, and we will see you again next week. Happy Thursday evening to you all, and have a great night. Remember to take over and take control. Have a great night.
Bye.